Hi, so I'm trying something new here. I've been getting a lot of people asking me for tutorials or tips on how to draw the human body or anatomy in general. So I figured I'd give you guys a quick video on how I break down the human body. So I'm just starting with a really fast sketch so that people who are more visual learners can just watch and see how I bring the human body to existence within my own style. And after I get done with the sketch, I will give you guys a more in depth breakdown of how I do anatomy or human proportions in a simplified manner. Alright, now that I've shown you guys what I do, allow me to explain it in more detail. So, I should probably use a thicker pen than this. Alright, I'm going to use this red brush pen to help with explaining certain shapes that go on here. So, as I explained briefly, that I use a trapezoid shape for the pelvis area and the shoulder area. Those are generally the more prominent shapes I use with making bodies. There's also this small rectangle I put in between. So I'm not doing let me get the smaller pen. So I don't do trapezoid on top of a trapezoid because that doesn't give enough room for the body to breathe. So it's better to do a trapezoid, a rectangle, and another trapezoid. This gives your body room to breathe and bend in different shapes that we can interpret as the human form. You don't want an open book, you want a book and the spine. You want the cover and the spine. So you don't want the inside of the book, you want the outside of the book for your body. And I do have this area here that drops down lower, which is the pelvis area. I make my pelvis area a little longer, or it comes down a little lower on the torso. That's just how I draw bodies. There's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just what I do. For the knees, I do like a triangle shape for the knees. I know like a lot of different tutorials have people do circles or squares, and those are very valid shapes. I personally like doing the triangle method because it helps with flowing with the curves, and I like using a lot of curve language in my artwork. Speaking of curves, the lines that I do on the legs do have a lot of curves, and there's a reason for this. So depending on which way the leg is facing, that is going to show you guys the calf muscle. So the calf muscle will stick out depending on how your leg is facing. So if you have your knees pointing inward, your calves will point outwards. Or if you have your knee facing straight, then both your calves, or well, both sides of the leg, you're going to be seeing a little bit of calf muscle. So it's going to be less of a defined shape, as opposed to if your knees are pointing inward, you're going to get this really prominent shape here. That's your calf muscle. I kind of do the same thing with the arms, but you don't really see the elbow a lot with how arms are placed unless you're looking at the outside of the arm or the arm is bent upward. Then you're going to start seeing some more elbow definition. Now, when it comes to spacing the body out, or as they say, proportions, let me grab another pen. All right, I'm going to use this pen to talk about proportions. So let's move over here where we will have a little bit more space. Now, when I started the illustration or my sketch, you saw me draw a line up top and at the bottom. That is my full body proportion lines. That just lets me know that within this space, I'm going to fit an entire body. Now, this can change depending on the character or depending on their pose, but typically I do this. It just helps me break it down. I then draw a line that goes down the middle. That just lets me center the character on wherever I'm drawing them. Now this top line, that's where your head or the top of your head is going to be. So your top of your head should stop at that line. Now the bottom line has a little bit of wiggle room because this should be where the heel or the base of your foot is. But this can change depending on if your character is wearing heels or if their foot doesn't follow the typical human shape. So I usually do like these little triangles. These are kind of where like the ankle and the back of your foot is. So if I broke down the foot, this is the front of your foot, this is the middle of your foot, and then this part here is the back of your foot. So this little triangle shape that I have here is what I would draw on the bottom line. And then coming from there, this is my head. So I just split the body in between this line and this line. So when it comes to the, I won't want to say typical or average, but most human characters are proportionally the same. So your hip or your waist is going to be the halfway point between the top of your head and the bottom of your feet. And then my characters usually have really long necks. Just as how I draw, so I'm gonna try and give them like a shorter neck space. So this little space I left here is where the neck would be from the head to your shoulders. And then we have my handy dandy trapezoid. That's the shoulders or the top of your torso, your bust even. And then we have the waist, your rib cage. This is basically the spine of your book. And then from there, we're going to have another trapezoid. That is your hip box. Not your hip box, your hip box. Or, well, trapezoid. Now, from this line here, or like your pelvis line to your ankle, I'm just going to draw a straight line. And then halfway on that line is going to be where your knee sits. Your leg is generally the leg is the same length as your torso. So when you like sit and try to touch your toes, your body should fold at that center point. So your knees are the halfway point between here. You can also use that kind of proportional measurements for finding your elbow. So if you ever want to draw an arm and you're looking for where to put your elbow, you draw your arm and then your hand. So you take your hand and your shoulder and you draw a line from that. Then you're going to find the halfway point of that line and draw down. And that is where your elbow would be. I typically don't draw these lines whenever I'm doing my sketches and stuff because I've gotten to the point where I just mentally know where things are and how to space them out. But those are just some simple lines. All in all, I hope that you guys were able to learn some helpful tips in this tutorial. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!